Okay, so here we are. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I don't know if my mic is being used by something else. Welcome. If you're watching the replay, we are here every week from 11:30 a.m. California time to about 1:30 or so. So you can join us next week as well, every Sunday. So we don't have a whole lot of questions in the comments this week, so not much to pull from there. But if you guys have any questions, let me know. We can get started, or you can just say hi. I have a notification. Go away. So, I should probably turn that back on. I just finished recording a little bit extra that I had to record for the emphasis and contrast lesson. So I'm going to try to get that done today. That's the plan. That's my schedule. But we'll see how it goes. I also want to try to make 2 shorts today. I'm going to die. This thing's going to kill me. That's okay. But yeah, lots of stuff going on. I'm going to be posting a lot more. We're trying to post a lot more. And I'm going to be creating a character, Dagger. So you can look forward to that. Wendell is here. Welcome. Abdullah is here. Welcome. I don't know if you guys have questions. Until then, yeah. So Abdullah, I added the IAA to the list officially. It's right here. I'm looking at it right now. I have a long list. I haven't made it, aside from the one I just published, I haven't made a lot of the extra practice or a few of the remaining minimal pair lessons, but there are still more coming. So don't worry. Yes, good. Wendell, can I say I met some cow when I was on my way to the country? That sounds funny. I met some cow when I... Okay. I know some languages use what might translate as meat in a basic way. They tend to use it in cases where we don't use meat as the translation. Like, I can't think of any examples off the top of my head because they're weird. They don't work in English. But if you say I met some cow, we use meat for people. You don't meet animals. Now, there are special cases where it might be like a specific animal that's maybe like a pet or a special animal or something, and you're kind of giving it like some human attributes like we do. We give animals names and this and that, whatever. So there's a gray line there, but in general, in the regular speech, like if you're talking to another person, you're probably not going to say like I met a cow or I met a cat or I met something like. And in this case, especially with the word some, I met some cow. It's like there are many cows that are walking around the city and working like people, but I met this particular random cow, and he told me a good story. That's kind of how it sounds. Like I met some cow. So it seems weird. You would probably say like I saw a cow. Now if you didn't just see it but you actually like interacted with it, then you could say like I encountered or to encounter, to come across, are kind of broad. It doesn't imply that you interacted with the cow, but if you did interact with the cow, it'll still cover it. Where saw is like literally just like you just saw it. So we probably have to specify here, like I don't know, I pet a cow, or I ran into a cow and pet it. when I was on my way to the country, something like that. You have to describe what you were doing. Can I omit the word that in all I know is that she's not coming? Yes. All I know is she's not coming. Well, the word that to link to thoughts like that. So not the word meaning like this or that, but the specific grammatical use of that to link to thoughts. Probably like 90% of the time. Let me see. I'll probably say 80% of the time, 70 to 80% of the time, we drop it. And probably about 99% of the time, we can potentially drop it. So we don't always drop it when we can. But it's very, very, very common. More often than not, we're definitely going to not say it. The only time that you really need it is, and there was a song I was listening to, and I was trying to remember this example because I knew a question like this was going to come up. It was a perfect example. I remember who the singer is too, but I don't remember the line of the song. Anyway, if you say blah, 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 right? So there's like this and this, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now, if it's two thoughts and there's supposed to be that between it, normally you can drop that. And it's clear from the context and from the grammar of each thought, right? Like in this case, we say, what did you say? All I know. Okay, that's one thought. Is like an equal sign. So is that connects it to the next idea. So that's right. There's a subject. No, there's a verb. And then she, new subject, not coming, new verb. Okay, so it's very, very clear that we have two subjects. We know what we're talking about. We don't need the word that to link the two ideas. But there are some times, and unfortunately, I can't think of that example or any other examples off the top of my head because that's my weakness. But there are some cases where if you use that or don't use that, it creates two different meanings. Because there are some cases where it's actually not two thoughts, it's one thought. Or depending on how it's interpreted, it could be two thoughts and the word that is supposed to be there. So when you say a sentence like that, if you don't say that, it can sound like the one thought. Right now, this is a special case. This doesn't happen most of the time, but there are cases like that where that might be the effect. And in cases like that, you have to include that to make it clear. Otherwise, it'll be confusing. The context might be enough to tell us what's going on, but it might be questionable. So short answer, yes, most of the time, when you have that to link two ideas, you can completely drop it. You don't have to say it. If you pay attention to natives, we do it all the time. Do natives say, do you got water instead of have you got water? Well, have you got water? To me, I mean, an American can say that, but it sounds more British to me. Sounds like a more British use of have. We would probably say, do you have water? That's what we would do. We don't. There are cases where maybe it'll work, but in American English, we generally don't use have in the same way that we use do when like making questions and stuff. So like you, I don't want to use have instead of got, but instead of got, I'm going to change it to drink, right? So it's like you drink water. Do you drink water? We add the do because it's you do drink water, but we don't say the do, and then it moves over. Do you drink water? That's the question. Okay. Instead of saying like you have got water and then switching have, just like we would do with do, have you got water to make a question. American English doesn't really like to do that. That's more of I think a British thing. So I would generally avoid have you got water or have you got anything. Again, it can exist, but there's probably certain special cases for that, certain phrases. So do you have water would be the most natural thing to say. Probably also add any. Do you have any water? Now, if you use got, do you got water? This use of got to replace have, because that's what got would mean here. It would mean have. This is a case where got replacing have sounds more informal. So it does work, but it sounds more informal. So yes, we do say that, but it would be much more common. Like it's not just like, oh, this is the thing to say in informal situations. No, like even in informal situations, it's much more common to say, do you have water? So Ging, hi chat, yes, good time. I think Ging is drunk. Might have been inspired by my extra practice P lesson with my phonetic transcription. But there's a lot of catches. The most common one is forgot about something and left something, miss meet, so many nuances. English is a maverick in so many ways, which makes it cool. Yeah, I guess. I saw a cat, I saw a cow. That's the catch. Okay. Can I also use the word how instead of the word way in this sentence? I like the way you are. I like how you are. Yes. Very, very, very good question. Fantastic question. Wendell always brings the questions, the good questions. I kind of talked a bit about this in the Logic of Preposition book when I was talking about the preposition by, which will also be in the lesson whenever I eventually make that for YouTube. There is a direct connection under the surface and the subconscious between, even kind of above the surface really, between way and how. Like how, if you think like, what does how mean? Like if I say, how would you describe the word how? No, how would you describe the word how? How would be in what way? In what way? Okay, so now I'm using another WH question, but I'm saying what way? How is the way that you do something, generally speaking? So even that question, how would you describe how? In what way would you describe how? Same thing, same thing. Now, in what way could maybe mean something slightly different, but that's what how means, specifically in what way. So if I say, I like the way you are, I like how you are, you're saying exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. I like the way you are. I like how you are. Yeah, there's no difference there. No difference. Is it okay to add the phrase to this restaurant in this sentence like this? Oh, remember context is always important though when you have two different phrases. So just because they mean the same thing, context may have a subtle effect. I'm not saying it does in this case, but a little disclaimer because context is important. But they're the same thing. Is it okay to add the phrase to this restaurant in this sentence like this? I'm not coming back to this restaurant. Is it not redundant? No. Well, I mean, I guess, yeah, if you're looking at it, I mean, when you say I'm not coming back and it's a restaurant, you're implying this is the place I'm not coming back to. And so it can seem redundant. I mean, if we're being very, very, what do I want to say? Not in terms of the sentence, but if we're looking at it in like a very literal, like plain way, technically, yeah, it's redundant, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't feel redundant to us. We don't think of it as being redundant. In fact, like, so let's say you had a restaurant, you have a horrible experience, right? Like the waiter is really rude to you and blah, blah, blah. Okay, whatever. Now, if you just say, I'm not coming back. Okay, that's fine. Like you get up, you walk away, you say, I'm not coming back. There's two things with that. Number one, it kind of doesn't feel strong enough. Like it doesn't have the point on it, or like to this restaurant gives the point. But number two, we don't know if you're talking about you're never coming back to this restaurant because the restaurant is the problem, or you're not coming back to the restaurant for some other reason, right? Like, I don't know, maybe you and your friend, you're driving, your friend went with you, you're both eating, your friend makes you mad, and then you get up and you say, I'm not coming back. Which, I mean, you probably say like, you can walk home or something, but if you say, hey, I'm not coming back, and you just leave your friend there, right? Now the context is completely different. It's not the restaurant that was the problem. You probably come back to the restaurant because the restaurant was fine, but you're telling your friend, I'm not coming back. Like, I'm gonna leave and I'm not gonna come back to get you. Like, you have to walk. So even though it can seem redundant on the surface, the context is important. And as I said, it sort of puts a point on it. Like, I'm not coming back to this restaurant. I'm not coming back to this restaurant. It makes it feel more complete, more direct what you're talking about, especially because you're probably going to be angry about it. So you want to sort of highlight this restaurant. Now, you don't have to do that with emphasis necessarily, but yeah. Hopefully that makes sense. Do both Spanish and English language. So do both. You either would say do both Spanish and English something. Okay. Or if you're going to say language, you have to say do both the Spanish and English languages. Right. So we need the, and then because it's plural, we need the S there. Formality and formality have a big difference. Okay, so we have to rephrase this whole thing. Is there a big difference between the use of formality and informality in English and Spanish? That's how we would phrase that question. You don't have to phrase it exactly that way, but that would be a much more natural way to phrase the sentence. Okay. And things in advance. Yeah, so this is one of the things I'm going to, at some point, might turn out to be relatively soon. It's not quite on my schedule yet, but I'm going to, at some point, be making a lesson about this. I've talked about this in the live streams before. So there's English and like English culture, right? Which we know, like between British culture and American culture, there's differences. But there's sort of like an underlying, we could say, like English culture. And then there's like the British flavor, the American flavor, the Australian flavor, whatever. So this is true of English to some extent in general, but especially American English, American culture. We do have ways to express formality. There are definitely places where we would use that, but compared to your culture, especially if you come from a very different culture, like say, like Spanish, between Spanish and English, it's a bit more similar than say between Japanese and English, or like Japanese literally has grammatical structures to make the other person refer to the other person in a higher status and refer to yourself in a humbler status. Like, it's built into the grammar. So that's a bit much more. So, but depending on what language and culture you're coming from, when you come into English, and specifically American English, a lot of the places where you might think to use formal language, you either don't have to, or we probably wouldn't. Because American culture, compared to other cultures, even to an extent compared to other English-speaking cultures, I'm thinking British English specifically, is a bit more informal overall. Now, the safe thing to do, right? If you get a job in an English-speaking country, you talk to your boss. The safe thing to do, if you're not sure, use formal language. Use formal, intonation patterns, things like that. But like the first boss I ever had at my first job, right? Like, he was my boss. There's certain respect there. There's a certain line there, whatever. He was a pretty young guy. I was a pretty young guy at the time. I was 18. It was my first job. I think he was like 26 maybe or something. So we're both young. He's a bit older than me. He's my boss. So there's that line there that you have to be aware of. But we would joke around. He would use informal language with me. I would use informal language with him. Not necessarily too super informal, like but like even like saying like, hey, how's it hanging, boss? That happens in American culture. I don't know if a British person would ever say that, But so it depends on kind of how your boss is. If there's a significant age difference, if they're a lot older, then they might expect you to be a bit more formal. So that's part of it too. Context is super, 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 super important. So there is certainly a line, right? But depending on the specific person you're talking to, depending on their exact position and stuff, we tend to like to not be formal if we don't really have to. Again, this is a blanket statement. I'm speaking very, very general. And I've even made the statement before in a previous live stream that American English, again, we do have ways to speak more formally, but in general, it's less about formal versus informal. It's much more about basic politeness versus informal. Because this basic politeness will cover pretty much any formal situation for the most part. I think probably any formal situation where you don't have to, try to be very stiff and super, super controlled. Like you can still be kind of relaxed, but the particular words that you use, to an extent, the intonation a bit maybe. But I'm thinking specifically, I like using this as an example. So when we talk about, I'm going to have a lesson on this too in the future. So there's can, right? And can has a couple different uses, but if we just talk about it in the sense of, like, if I say, can you help me? Okay. Now, this might seem weird to you, depending on who your teachers were or what textbooks you read, because this might seem like wrong English. You might think that you should say, could you help me? Okay. And could you help me would be standard politeness. Okay. And the reason why, there's actually subconscious workings here of what's going on and why it feels this way. Notice that could, right? We're not using could in the hypothetical. Like if I had a time, I could go, right? That sort of second conditional hypothetical statement. I'm asking you a real question, like, could you help me? I'm asking for your help, right? There's nothing hypothetical about it. But when we use that form of can, of course, remember, this isn't the past tense of can, because could is also the past tense of can. That's a different meaning of could. Just don't get confused. We're not talking about the past tense. But when we change can into that sort of hypothetical form of could, right? And then I use that in the question, it's still a real question. It's not hypothetical, but because we're using that form, it sounds polite. It sounds distant. Like it's not super distance, but it's like there's enough distance. There's enough sort of formality or politeness there. So it's sort of like me saying like I don't want to bother you, or I know you're busy, but is it possible that you can help me? Okay, so all of that, just by saying could instead of can, you get sort of all of that implied. It just makes it sound more polite. It makes it sound like you're not trying to bother the person. You're not trying to impose on the person, right? Now, if you say can, that's also perfectly grammatically fine. If there's any teacher that tells you that's wrong, they're wrong. Just straight up, they are wrong. Can you help me is perfectly grammatically correct. There's no problem with it, except it does sound more informal. It doesn't have that basic level of politeness. Okay. And there's a couple reasons for that. One reason is because it just, now that we don't have that hypothetical form of could, or what seems like the hypothetical form of could, it feels very direct. Okay, it's a subtle thing, but it feels more direct. The second reason, and this is why some teachers might say this is grammatically incorrect, is, right, can has a couple different uses. One of the uses is an ability, right? If I say I can swim, that's an ability I have. If I say, can you help me? One way to interpret that, which we don't, if the context is clear, we will interpret it this way, talking about an ability. Like, I don't know if you can physically help me, right? Like maybe you're injured, but So I ask, can you help me? Despite your injury, are you able to help me? Right? That would be the context. But most of the time, that's not the context. And when we say, can you help me? We're not talking about the ability. But a lot of teachers will say, like, oh, well, we're not talking about an ability, so you shouldn't use can. That's stupid. That's nonsense. We do this all the time. All the time. Can you help me? Can you help me? Can you help me? Again, it sounds more informal, a little bit more direct. Could is the safe option, the more polite option, even with friends. See, this is the other thing is like, I might have a friend, but like, say in Spanish, right? If you have a friend and you always refer to your friend with tú, right? The informal form of you. I could be wrong. I'm not a native, but I don't think you would ever, just to sound more polite, you would never suddenly refer to them as usted, right? Like the formal form of you. I don't think that you would do that. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong. But in English, even if I'm talking to my friend, if I want to sound more polite, this is why I say it's more about politeness versus informality instead of formality versus informality. If I want to sound more polite, I want to sound more nice. Not because I'm trying to manipulate them, although that could be the case, but just because I want to sound nicer. I want to phrase it in a nicer sounding way. I don't want to, even though I can be direct with this friend, they wouldn't really care. I want to be polite. I want to be nice. I could say, could you help me? I could choose to do that. So yeah, anyway, we also know that, say in Spanish, like with tú and usted, right? If I don't know you and I say, hey, ¿cómo estás tú? Right? Like, how are you? You'd be like, ¿qué? ¿Cómo que tú? So you wouldn't, like, I can't refer to you as tú because I don't know you, right? That's too informal. Where in English, we just have you, right? We used to have two forms, but now we just have you. And so there's no special conjugation for the formal form. It's just, how are you? You go, you do, you see, right? And so that's one big difference, of course. We don't have the actual, it's not inflected in the verbs. But anyway, yeah, so this is a big topic. That's what I have off the top of my head. But yeah, think of American English more in terms of like politeness and informality instead of formal and informal. I saw a cat, but I met a cat girl. There you go. Yeah. And that does sound very natural. Yeah, because a cat girl is like a cat person. So anyway, the equal sign in grammar is a common mistake for beginners. You guys forget is are between clauses. Yeah, that's a common mistake. Ahmed is here and retracted the message. You don't have to retract the message. That's fine. By the way, I said it's said as Jing. What? What is cat B row one? I don't know what this is referring to. Okay. We got an intruder. What? Oh. I guess that was the retracted comment. Okay. Well, yeah, politics are sometimes mentioned, but that's not the purpose here. I try not to go into that domain. I don't think you want to talk about make a sub channel for Spanish to English. Yeah, no, I already have my hands way more than full with just the one. Talking about the cat that squeezed. Oh, I see. Cat B-roll. Yeah. Yeah, she does that. She's in her spot right now. Anyway, come on, guys. Any questions? What are the questions? Wendell only had like 2 questions. Well, not quite 2, but compared to how many questions Wendell usually has, he only had like 2 questions. So Let's chat question. Okay, well then chat about something. I don't know. I'm here to answer you guys' questions. We can hang out, we can talk about stuff, but I need something to talk about. I revived my TikTok. I don't think anybody here cares about that because I post all the same things to TikTok that I post on YouTube Shorts. It's just an easy cross post. But TikTok is stupid. I guess I shouldn't say that. But I say it's stupid only because like when I first joined TikTok, I think I was at like the end of the big explosion that it was having. And I got like, I think it was like 15,000 followers almost overnight. And then after that, it, regardless of, because I stopped posting for a while, but I was posting for a while after that. I stopped, I came back, and I'm posting again now. And it's just been at like 16.4 thousand for like the longest time, like over a year. I'm just like, eh. A lot more than here on YouTube though. With Gene, I meant the YouTube name. I got okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I wouldn't have even gotten that. Looks like Ging to me. I'm not even going to try to say the second part. Whatever. Also, how long has it been since people stopped stopping you with questions on stream? TikTok is stupid and used it. Well, TikTok is, I mean, the platform in itself is fine. If we're talking about in terms of like productivity, TikTok is like the one thing that you don't want to go to because their algorithm is insanely efficient. And like every time I open the app, I don't even like to open the app. I'm just uploading on the desktop now that they have that feature. Because if I open the app and I don't immediately switch over to the profile tab, probably the next 30 minutes are just going to be gone. It's ridiculous. So very dangerous. But anyway, unless of course you're watching English text content, which you should be sitting there for 30 minutes watching great content anyway. Do you like ice cream? There you go. There's something you can talk about. Yeah, no. I like ice cream, I guess, as long as it's doesn't have any dairy or eggs in it. Yeah, vegan and all. But you're complaining too much. Your YouTube is still hard stuck at 5.3 thousand. Your TikTok is way bigger. Yeah, I know. And yet my YouTube is growing a lot faster than my TikTok. Power of animatives. Forbidden evil technology. People on TikTok are the problem. Anyways, no, I don't know. There's a lot of I guess we maybe say garbage on TikTok, but there's a lot of garbage everywhere. It's the internet. The internet is sort of a garbage collector. But there's also a lot of good stuff on TikTok. I know she has a YouTube channel now. I think it's Call Me Chris. It's like this, Call Me Chris or something like that. She started on TikTok. I was following her for a while. She's really, really funny. She has lots of skits and stuff. I know she has a YouTube now, so good way to get English exposure through entertainment. I will say she has several different characters that she kind of goes through, and she does some accents on them. She has really good accents too. Like there's one Russian character, and so she doesn't always speak with like a neutral accent, but her normal way of speaking is a neutral accent. So you're gonna get a little bit of a mix, but that's a good channel to watch for English exposure, I think. Call Me Chris is good. But anyway, that's one that stands out to me on TikTok. But there's some other good ones on there too. Anyway, I'd watch English X. Yeah, I can imagine vegan ice cream probably not fun, but I'd take that back with almond milk. Yeah, no. When you put vegan in front of something, people are like, "Oh, that must not taste good." Like, no, actually, vegan food is literally the most delicious food. Like, it's just like any other food. Like you add spices, you cook it right, or if it's ice cream, right? Like, yeah, there's ways that it can be bad, but people don't realize like, oh, hey, this brand of ice cream tastes really good. This brand of ice cream sucks. And it has nothing to do with vegan. It's just like they both have milk in them, and you don't say, oh, well, this one is bad because it doesn't have as much milk or something. It's just like, I don't like this ice cream. But if it's vegan ice cream and you taste it and it's not good, you're like, oh, it's because it's vegan. It's like, no, it's because the way they made it tastes like crap. There's plenty of great tasting food and ice cream, whatever, that's vegan. Just because it's vegan doesn't mean it's horrible. It just depends on how it's made, and what's in it. So yeah, like I like the meat replacements are a really big, easy example here, because there's tons of meat replacements out there that taste like crap. They're horrible. I don't that. But then there's some of them, like the Beyond Burger, which are just better than what they're replacing, just hands down. And even if you don't think they're better, most people would not say that they're bad, right? Like, well, it's just not as good, but it's not bad, right? That's the whole point. It's an alternative. But anyway, internet sucks, but you can get a good run for your money if you do it right. I guess I'm probably not doing it right because I'm not getting a whole lot of money right now. I'm struggling finding new YouTube channels unless I type keywords in the search box. Vodka bear, what? Okay. Whole plant isn't that an ultimate punch block? I hate Gen Z. Anyway, well, not all vegan food is clean. That's the whole thing. There's tons of vegan junk food. That's the other misconception. People think vegan means healthy. It doesn't. Whole food, plant-based with minimal processing is healthy. There's even, although we have more and more research that shows that even the highly processed vegan junk food it's not good for you, but it's still not as bad for you as the highly processed not vegan food. So there's something to think about. But anyway, why meat or meat replacements if you can get so many natural foods that taste a bazillion times better than that? Well, you don't have to eat meat replacements. I actually don't eat a whole lot of it myself. I eat a lot of beans and grains and always trying to eat more fruits. I never liked fruits. I was very picky when I was young. I didn't eat a blueberry until I was like 27. I ate my first blueberry at 27. Yeah. Lots of broccoli. I love broccoli. Oh my God, broccoli is so good. Especially with a little salt or lemon pepper. Broccoli. People were like, broccoli's gross. Like, no. I mean, I think it's fine by itself, but just put a little salt or lemon pepper on it. Oh, it's so good. So good. And it's one of the single healthiest things you can eat. Cancer killer. Yeah, exactly. Whole food, plant-based diet. Avocado is the best meat fish replacement. Well, this definitely is not all about English anymore. Guys, if you have any English questions, please ask me, because I'm just going with what Jing is is throwing at me. Abdullah passed by. Oh, first I didn't see the bio. I was like, he passed, like he died. What? While he was watching me. Okay, I'm gonna come back to that. Prepositions are important, guys. Prepositions are important. Avocado is the best. Okay, yeah. So the thing, see, I don't like avocado. I can eat it. I've never liked it. It's not that bad, honestly. It's just I have this mental aversion to it because I never liked it before. I'm like, it's kind of like, and then I don't like the texture of it, especially. So, but I don't eat avocados. Number one, because I don't like them. But even when I was trying to eat them more, I came upon some information that like a lot of the avocados that we eat here in the U.S. I forget what country it is. It might be Colombia or something. But a lot of the avocados come from like somewhere in I think there's a lot from Mexico too. But they take a lot of water. And there's this one town in, I think, Colombia. I might be wrong, but somewhere in South America, where like the avocado fields are taking up so much water that the people don't have enough water, and that's kind of a problem. Like I would rather have the people have the water than, you know, have an avocado, you know, on my toast, because you know I'm a millennial, and that's apparently what we do. It's so gross, but anyway, yeah. So I don't eat avocados. One, because I don't like them very much, and two, because they take too much resources. Now, of course, people also say, well, what about almonds? Because almonds take a lot of water too. I do drink almond milk. I generally tend to prefer soy milk instead of almond milk, which is a whole other topic. I know a lot of people are like, soy, that's not good for you, but different topic. Soy is very, very good for you. Yeah, this would probably be a better discussion for my other channel that technically doesn't exist right now. Moving on. Broccoli is a good A tier veg. A tier, yeah, that's one way to put it. Cauliflower. People call it cauliflower. I mean, I know we're shortening things, but cauliflower. It's cauliflower. Is way worse. It's okay. Yeah, cauliflower is good for you too, but I don't really eat cauliflower. I don't know. It's kind of blah. It's like, it's not blah like it's bad. It's just, it's bland to me. I mean, oh, just put some salt and lemon pepper on it like the broccoli. Yeah, but the broccoli itself actually has like more of a flavor, and I like that flavor. My friend passed by while I was watching you, so he asked, "What are you watching right now?" I said, "English hacks." He laughed because he thought I was watching something dumb like TikTok. Yeah, yeah. I knew when I named the channel that some people would get that impression. It's probably hurting my growth, but that's fine. That's fine. It's the best thing that I can think of, because I mean, not all videos, not all topics are about this, but at the end of the day, I'm always like, I'm doing this with the intonation. I did it with the prepositions. I need to make more preposition videos. I'm going to be doing it with the verbs. I'm going to be doing it with other things. That's sort of like hacking into the personality of the language, hacking into the subconscious mind of the native speaker and how things are connected under the surface. That's a big part of my whole approach. And so, like, I don't want to say like, oh, like, I don't know. I guess I could say feel English like a native for the channel name, but it's kind of clunky. And like English hacks is like, it's short, it's simple. Sure, it sounds kind of cheap, but it does the job. I can't think of anything better. Anyway, why spam Skype DMs when streams are a perfect place to vent or talk about stuff with a nice strimmer? I'm a strimmer now. Okay. I don't know what a strimmer is, but I know what you mean. I got to hate them over time too, especially when you have to always have them right for a good taste. Some people don't like the stems in them. Yeah. Jokes on them. I know, right? English hack your friend in a couple months with the MP course. Yeah, maybe. Almonds are a water deli. I know. What is it? 12 gallons of water for an almond tree or so? Yeah. That's actually a common like anti-vegan argument, which is funny because like, yeah, almond milk is a common dairy alternative, but like so is soy milk. Like soy is probably just as much, if not more. But some people are scared of soy and they choose the almond for no reason. One of the common arguments is like, oh, because you know it's a legitimate fact that livestock not only use up a very large amount of water, but they also contribute to a lot of waterway pollution, which is sort of further depleting water if we don't sanitize it or whatever. So there's all kinds of problems, and people are like, yeah, well, almonds take a lot of water too. It's like, yeah, okay, let's compare that to all the water the cow drank before, you know, it met its end. So yeah, I mean, But there's an argument there. Almonds do take a lot of water. We grow almonds here in California, and I have no idea why. California is not the state, at least in Southern California, it is definitely not the state to be growing almonds in. So, like, we're literally in a severe drought. I was driving down the freeway the other day, and there's this big thing that says, severe drought, save water, save California. Like, it literally says that, save water, save California. So, yeah, but we're I think this is like the third major drought in my lifetime. It's like there's like one every 5 to 10 years. So, yeah. Cauliflower is because I'm too lazy to type. Oh, cauliflower. I see. Did you hear the birds chirping? I vaguely recall hearing birds chirping. I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, I mean, I guess. Outside my window right here is literally just an alley. So it's not like I'm in a forest. That would be so nice. I need to go to the mountains so bad. Feeling English like a native. Still have a Patreon legendary T where it says, think. Yeah, I know. See, that and that's going to make that even better because, like, Patreon doesn't even exist anymore for English Hacks. So all of you people that got the VIP original English Hacks Patreon t-shirts, that's it. You got them. It's limited time, limited edition. If you ever meet me in real life, I'll sign it for you because I'm just that awesome, you know, haha. Anyway. So yeah, maybe if I ever reach 1 million subscribers, you could sell your shirt for like $1,000 or something. I don't know. I doubt it'll ever be that important. So yeah, I did a little bit of rebranding with the subtitle. Because I finally found a better way to describe it. The subtitle really gives the nuance to it. If you just see English Hacks, you're like, oh, what is that? So let's not get political about what kind of people make those arguments. What? Okay. Almonds are probably Central California, and they all get sold to somebody else. Nobody uses California almonds in the States. I guess. I don't know. I don't pay attention. All I know is almonds are grown here. That's all I know. And they use a lot of water. Are the past of the verb dance? Finally, an English question. Thank you, Wendell. Wendell to the rescue. Are the past of the verb danced, and the structure used to dance equivalent? Ooh, that was a tricky sentence grammatically, and you did that perfectly. Very nice. In Spanish, baile versus bailaba. Yeah, this is a common problem. This is a common problem between English and Spanish. Honestly, this is not something that I fully mastered in Spanish. I got a pretty good feeling for it, but there's still cases where, like, I hear, like in this case, like baile versus bailaba, or bailaba. That's very English accent there, bailaba. Where, like, based on the context, I would expect the other one to be used, and I'm kind of confused. So I know I haven't completely mastered it. And I think that there are cases where, like, you can choose to use one depending on the nuance of the context, and it'll, like, just mean two slightly different things or something. So yeah, this is the problem. Steve, I haven't seen Steve in forever. Oh my God, Steve is here. I thought you died. Not really, but yeah, welcome, Steve. Big welcome back. Hope everything's well. Anyway, so back to Wendell's question here. Okay. If we're talking, unfortunately, I don't have much more than a textbook answer for you here, because, as I said, I have not mastered this in Spanish myself. But in a very general, basic way, right? The simple past, which would be, get my Spanish keyboard here. bailé, whatever, bailé, right? So that most directly is I danced, right? That's all it is. It's simple past, I danced. Right. Bailaba, bailaba. I can't type. Bailaba. Okay. Most general, basic, direct translation is used to dance. Not in the sense of I am used to dancing, right? That would be ing, but I used to dance in the past. My feeling of the English and the feeling of the Spanish and my understanding of it, again, I haven't mastered it, so I know there's something I'm missing, but based on what I know and feel currently, this will generally be the case. Okay, if you're talking about the problem is that notice how right Spanish has this sort of aba or for an AR verb, you know, this what is like the imperfect preterite or whatever, where it's built into the grammar, where we have to use a phrase used to dance. Okay, it's not actually like a conjugation. There's in the subconscious mind of a native speaker of Spanish, right, in the personality of the Spanish language, there's two distinct ways of looking at the past, which is one as a completed point in time and one as not a completed point in time. English doesn't, I mean, we have ways to express that, but we don't have that in the same way that Spanish does, right? So we can say, I used to dance. Would can also be used with that. That's a special meaning of would, like I would dance every day. So this is one of the difficulty, like going from Spanish to English. I'm sure, especially since you have this question, obviously there's some difficulty, there's some question there. I think going from English to Spanish is a lot more difficult here because when I was first trying to learn the difference between these two, it it broke my brain. I was just like, this doesn't make any sense. Because like I could get the basic idea, but then a lot of the examples that I was given, like I mean, there's basic examples, like okay, that makes sense. But then a lot of the like you see lots of cases or lots of other examples where you're just like, well, I would expect it to be this instead of that. And it's just like really confusing because what you expect to happen doesn't happen. And so you're like, well, what's going on here? And this is partially because right, like if you're describing something that was happening, notice was happening, okay, that also that's another very basic common direct translation of this sort of abba or whatever is was dancing. See, we don't have a like it's not like a one-to-one Spanish to English. It's like Spanish and then English, 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 depending on what we're describing. This is part of the reason why it's difficult because the Spanish conjugation covers a whole range where English doesn't have anything built into the language that covers that in the same way. So if you say like bailaba cuando I can't even think in Spanish anymore. Cuando me llamé, right? So like I was dancing, like literally estaba bailando, but I'm pretty sure you'd say bailaba. And so you're saying, right, we're not describing I danced, right? It's not this action that happened at a point in time. We're saying, well, you called me, that's the action that happened, and then that action happened during the dancing, right? Um, so we have a different ways to express these things. It depends on the context. So unfortunately, I don't have a perfect answer for you there. If I reach a point at some point in Spanish, which I plan to in the future, where I have fully mastered, or to say it in more of a Spanish way, I have fully dominated the language. Sounds very funny in English. But when I fully mastered the language, um, I'll have a better answer for you and I'll be able to explain it better. but that's what I got. So used to dance, depending on the context, is a possible translation of bailaba. But it depends on the context and how we would speak in how we would describe something in a particular context. Now, I'm not sure if there are any cases where bailaba would mean I danced. Now, I guess, okay. I don't know how this, I'm not 100% sure on how this would translate into Spanish. One thing you could say is like, I was dancing while they were singing. Okay. Was doing while they were doing. Okay. So that's fine. What if I say, we could also say I danced while they were singing, or even I danced while they sang. There's subtle differences of how we can look at this. In this case, it doesn't really change the meaning too much if I change the form there. It feels a little bit different, but it doesn't really affect the meaning. But I could say like I danced while they were singing. In that particular case, I think the translation would still be bailaba. I don't know if cuando. I want to use cuando for simplicity. I don't know if you'd use a different phrase, but bailaba cuando ellos cantaban. Right. Now, here's another thing. If I say whether I danced while they sang or I was dancing while they were singing, if you use this aba in Spanish, it feels incomplete, right? Like if I just say yo bailaba, you say e, like and like, all right. Maybe the context would be sufficient to close it, but that's something I found when I was learning it. It feels incomplete, right? Where if you say yo bailé, it feels like okay, that's just a statement in the past. Where in English, if I say I was dancing while they were singing, it doesn't feel, it feels complete in itself, right? Now, if I just say like if I say, oh, I was dancing, like you didn't ask me what were you doing, I just say, hey, yeah, I was dancing. Like you might say and because you don't know why I'm telling you that. But you wouldn't say and in the sense of and then what or whatever. You're just like, okay, why are you telling me that? So I think there's also a little bit of a difference there built into the grammar. It's complicated. It's complicated. My life is going to suck in the future because all of this stuff, maybe not in every aspect and to as high of a degree, but like say I wrote the book on the logic of English prepositions. I know that it's not just English. In fact, I got the idea from German when I was studying German. That's where I first kind of tested it a little bit, and it seemed like it would work. I feel very, very confident. Any language that uses prepositions, there's a logic or at least a feeling that we can use logic to hack into for the prepositions, why they're used a certain way in that language. Same thing with the verbs, same thing with whatever. In a language like Japanese that doesn't have prepositions, it has particles, right? Postpositions. In this case, literally postpositions instead of prepositions. Same thing. So when I go, I don't know when I'm going to do it exactly, but I plan to be an advanced speaker of Spanish, Japanese, what's on my list? Spanish, Japanese, French, German. Those would be my core four. I also want to add Mandarin and Russian to those. Those ones are going to be a lot harder. And then if I continue past that, there's some other languages like Korean and Hindi and a couple other ones that I might throw on there. But for those main ones, especially those four core ones, Japanese, German, French, and Spanish, I want to do the same kind of work that I've done or that I am continuing to do, looking at English and the personality of English. I want to do that through those other languages as well. and not only for my own benefit, but also, you know, I can make books and content out of it. So, and then I'm going to be in a very interesting position because I'm probably going to be the only person in the world that has that type of insight into those languages and the relations or the similarities and differences between those specific languages in that way. So we'll see what happens with that. But let's see here. Strimmer. I guess, yeah. And still no questions, guys. Ask me questions. Fully mastered the language. Still here working towards English. I mean, yeah. When I say like fully mastered, I don't necessarily mean. I mean like C1 into C2, right? Because if you ask a lot of polyglots, right, the European framework, which is what we generally base things off of, or the equivalents in other languages like Japanese is N1 through N5. The Japanese framework goes up to C2, right, which is like supposed to be native like bilingual. And you're definitely super solid at that point. Like C1, you're super solid. You can pretty much handle everything. C2, like you deserve to be able to call yourself bilingual, but you talk to a lot of polyglots and they'll commonly tell you that there's beyond C2. There's other, like, you know, cultural references, historical references, subtle little nuances and things that, you know, you could still learn. I do not want to really go to that level with any language, maybe with Japanese, maybe, but trying to push beyond C2, I have no reason to do that. Getting up to C2, I do want to do that with my 4 core ones: Spanish, German, Japanese, and French. At the very least, Spanish, German, and Japanese. Probably also Mandarin and Russian. But Mandarin and Russian, I'll probably just settle for the equivalent of C1. Spanish, I might even settle for the equivalent of C1. The only reason why I chose Spanish first as like the first language to really like actually figure out how to learn a language and teach myself, because I'd played around with things before that. The biggest reason at the time, I had a crappy job and I was like, screw this. I want to work for myself. I want to have some skills that I can, you know, use for that. I like languages. Let's actually get serious about sitting down, figuring out how to learn a language. And thus began a several years long journey that eventually led me to today, talking to you on this channel. But I decided Spanish first because my estimation, which I still believe very firmly is true, is that of the languages I wanted to learn, Spanish would probably be the relatively easiest. And so far, I still stand by that. Between English and Spanish, obviously there's differences and stuff, but there's like, you don't have to build a big bridge like you do to Japanese or something like that. So I like Spanish, but if you compare it to like Japanese or French, or not French, I keep saying French, Japanese or German are like the two. Like if I could only pick 2 languages to learn, it'd be Japanese and German. But if I compared my interest in Spanish to Japanese and German, it's like, Spanish is okay. So I mainly chose it for pragmatic reasons, so that I could like get the ball rolling as fast as possible. Of course, I didn't end up actually doing anything with it yet, because I ended up going down the English teaching route, and that became a thing. So plans changed, but yeah, that's why I chose it first. Prepositions, particles. particles. Yeah, you reject the message. Okay. I was reading that. That was rude. I gotta stop shaking my monitor. I'd say EU framework is dog. There's basic fluency, advanced fluency, native fluency, C1, C2. That was like basic fluency to me in between. No, I think the European Union, or I think the CEFR, Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, is extremely useful. I don't think it's the end all be all, but it's very, very useful, especially as just like a general framework of breaking things down, figuring out roughly where people are and things. Nothing's perfect, but I really like the system. So yeah, I do think it kind of lacks at the advanced level a bit, because it's like, as I said, once you're B2, you're pretty comfortable. There's still a lot to learn, but you're pretty comfortable. When you get to C1, there's almost nothing that you can't do. Like, and then there's C2 on top of that. So like, I'm not even sure why there is a C2 really. Like, as I said, I mean, there's more beyond C2, but if there's more beyond C2, like, why not just have A1, A2, lower beginner, upper beginner, B1, B2, lower intermediate, upper intermediate? That makes sense, right? And then just advanced, just C, right? And then C just like, goes and goes and goes with subtler and subtler details and cultural, stuff. So I don't know. Advanced and native now, that's a huge feat to take. Feat to take. We would say leap to take, maybe, or feat to accomplish, but not feat to take. I'd say advanced is very doable, but out of comfort zone. But native fluency isn't worth it unless you need one to. Yeah. Advanced fluency pretty much covers 90% of the culture as well. Yeah, it's probably where most polyglots should land before speaking about that language, I guess. I brought a present. Wendell with the questions. I brought a present to you. It's only 12:30. This is a slow day, guys. We need more people in here. Ask more questions. I brought a present to you or for you. 4 equals instead of, and 2 equals for a person, or directing or adjusting it to a person. Am I right? Brought a present to you. My brain is not working. Hold on. I don't know what that is, but it's probably a package. Okay. Yeah, my brain stopped. I don't know why. This is embarrassing. Okay, so 2 for a person or direct. So, okay, what does I brought a present to you mean? And what does I brought a present for you mean? If you say I brought a present to you, okay, let's think about this, right? Logic of the prepositions. We have the lesson on 2 on YouTube. You can go watch that if you haven't watched it yet. 2 equals end point. I'm still on my Spanish keyboard. That didn't work out very well. 2 equals end point. There we go. So 2 is basically just this. It's just an arrow. It points to an end point, right? That's the core logic and feeling of 2. Now, there's above the surface, there's many different ways that could be used, but it's always going to be that in some way. It's actually a very simple preposition. So I brought a present to you. Okay, so I have a present. I'm bringing it where? Well, you, right? The present is for you. See how I'm describing it now? I'm using for. They're under the surface. 2 and 4 have sort of a messy relationship. But the present is for you, but you don't have it. I have it, and I am away from you. So the present is here. You're way over there. So if I say I brought a present to you, which here with A, it actually sounds a little bit weird, because I'm trying to think of the context where that would work. But disregarding that, just focusing on the to. If you say I brought a present to you, you're literally saying like, okay, the present was here and you're over there, and I bring it with me so that now the present is where you are, right? Because you are literally the end point in space. I'm bringing it to you. Okay. For you. Yes, for you. If you say I brought a present for you, this is where it can get tricky. And this is actually a really good question, really good context. This is the perfect context. Most of the time, when we use for instead of to, it's a very blanket statement. But a lot of the time, at least, probably most of the time, if we use for instead of to in a case like this, the for is going to mean instead of. So, like I could bring the present, but I have to work, right? So, the person X has a birthday. I'm not going to the birthday because I have to work. You're going to the birthday, but because I'm going to work, I can't take the present. So I give you the present and I say, take this present for me. Okay, so it's instead of, in place of. And that has to do, there's a specific use of for above the surface, which is exchange. The core logic is basis. For is very complicated. It's a very, very complicated preposition with the logic of it, but it's either a basis or a purpose. If you turn that sideways, you can get duration and length. But anyway, basis or purpose, it's usually going to be one of those two. In this case, instead of me doing it, I'm the basis that moves the present to that location. You're going to do it instead. So now you're the basis that moves that present to the location. So it's instead of. Okay. Now, if you say I brought a present for you, again, especially because of the A, because of the exact context here, it can sound a little bit weird. But in this particular sentence or this particular context, there's another way that we can interpret for, not meaning instead of. And Wendell, as a Spanish speaker, this is where we run into the problem of por, which is a problem going both ways, because por has its own logic and feeling in Spanish. Para has its own logic and feeling in Spanish. In English, we have to and for. Obviously, por is not always translated as to and for. Para is probably most commonly translated as for or to, one of those two. But por, you can also say like ando por la calle, like I walk through the street. Or es por ti, right? It's like it's because of you. So es para ti, it's for you. So lots of translation issues here. And this is why we really want to hack into the subconscious and really feel like, okay, what is going on in this language that is making it different above the surface, and why we're getting, these different translations is because under the surface things are working differently. So when we say I brought a present for you, instead of it meaning instead of you, it would literally be translated as para, I think. I'm a little confused on that too. I never mastered por and para. That's por, para, ser, estar. Simple past versus the imperfect past we were talking about earlier with baile and bailaba. Those are things that I haven't 100% mastered, unfortunately. But those are things that take English speakers a really long time to master. So, for those of you who don't know what para means, let me restate that. I don't know why I'm so bouncy today. I keep wanting to bounce. So I brought a present for you. Instead of it meaning instead of, it can mean like the present is for you. right? So I'm giving it to you. You are the intended receiver of the present. Now, if you say I brought a present to you, that does not mean that it's for that person. It doesn't mean that they're the person who is supposed to receive the present. Most likely it will be, but it's not. It doesn't. That's not what it means in itself. That's more from the context. Because if you bring a present to somebody and you give it to them, it's probably for them, right? But maybe it's for their kid or something. I don't know. So to, again, it's literally just that endpoint. Like you're just giving it to that person. They are the endpoint in space. Now that could be a recipient, right? But that's the endpoint. For could mean instead of, or like in this case, much less commonly, it could mean that they're the recipient. So to and for in this particular context can both mean the recipient. And as I said, for and to under the surface, they're kind of tangled up. It's really stupid. It's really, really stupid. But this is one of the trickier points. I tried to take some extra effort in the book to touch on that topic and sort of see how things can be different between to and for and different contexts and stuff. I'll also be talking about that in the videos eventually when I make them. But there are some things, as I said before, no matter what hacks I give you, no matter how much things make sense, you still need a certain amount of exposure. You still need a certain amount of practice, right? And there are some particularly tricky things that require a little extra exposure, maybe a little extra practice. The hacks ideally just kind of cut down the amount of time that it would take to get to that level of feeling, where normally it would take you, years. You can do it in hopefully a lot shorter time. But yeah, this is one of the tough ones. So happy birthday to you. Happy birthday for you. Okay, so now that one. So we do say to. And that's because like we're sending, right? Send a letter to somebody, send a message to somebody. We're sending our well wishes that your birthday will be good. Your birthday will be happy, right? Because it's like, hey, it's your birthday. Let's celebrate. Congratulations. You survived another year. So the happy birthday is like, it goes to you. It's sort of like say to, say something to someone, right? So it's sort of that to someone. I'm saying happy birthday to you. We just don't say happy birthday. No, we're just happy birthday, right? We're saying it's like it's in quotes actually. It's happy birthday to you, and we give it to you. If you say happy birthday for you, happy birthday for you, happy birthday for you. There is, I can think of very, very special, definitely not a common context where that could work. Normally it's just not going to work because it's at the end point, right? I'm giving you the happy birthday. But can't even think of how to describe that. And even in that case, we could still use to. Yeah, because it's so super specific and uncommon. I don't know if I want to waste the time trying to think about how to explain that. Yeah, we'll just move on. To me, it's not a good present. Okay, now that use of to is again a different context. So we're still talking about present, but it's a different situation. And I talk about this specific point in the book. There's to me and there's for me. This is a big mistake that English speakers make because it's confusing. When you say to me, you're saying basically in my opinion. Okay, so if I'm the endpoint, right, we have ways to say, like, if you ask me, it's not a good present, right? That's a phrase we can, if you ask me. So, right, if I'm the endpoint that is going to give the opinion, not that person, but to me, which maybe not the best way to describe how it feels, but it works. We say to me, it's a good present. You're saying, or it's not a good present. In my opinion, it's the same thing. In my opinion, it's not a good present. If you say for me, that does work. For me, it's not a good present. You're saying in my situation. Okay. And in the book, Logic of Prepositions, I gave the example of, right, so Tom has a car, and his car works just fine, right? He has plenty of money for gas, he has insurance, he has everything, the car has no problems, but he chooses to take the bus every day to work, even though he has a perfectly functioning car. And I'm saying it's very clear in this context, there's no other problems. He doesn't care about the environment. There's absolutely no issue physically or mentally or morally in this man's mind why he should not take the car. In fact, he should take the car because it's faster, right? But for some reason, he takes the bus. Now, I can say, notice I said for some reason. Now, I could say, does it make sense for Tom to take the bus? Okay, based on Tom's situation, based on the fact he has a perfectly fine car, he's not concerned about the environment, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't make sense for him to take the bus. He would take the car, right? Now, if I say, does it make sense to Tom to take the car? Now I'm asking, in Tom's opinion, does it make sense for him to take the car? Okay, so when we're talking about that type of context, 2 and 4 both work, but one is about someone's opinion and one is about someone's situation. And the reason why that works, someone's opinion, again, point to me, it's my opinion. Okay, I'm going to give you my opinion. Point to him and his opinion. Okay, so to me, to him, to whatever, whoever. When I say for, as I said, for is basis. So if we say based on this situation, okay, and I say for Tom, right, so it's based on this person, but more than that, this person's situation, right? So we can see how there's 2 different logics and feelings working, how they both make sense, but we get different meanings. Anyway, Steve, I should, but I don't have questions. It took you a while. I guess you were thinking really hard about that. That's okay. Or maybe you're responding to when I said that more recently, because I said that like 3 times today. Anyway, that's fine. You can just hang out. Watch my monitor bounce because I can't sit still for some reason. Timur, probably very horribly pronounced. Timur, something like that. I don't know. Timur, welcome. I see a lot of people. I don't know if this is your first time here. I may have seen you before, but if it's the first time, welcome for sure. Can we replace TH sound into S sound when it comes after S sound? For example, instead of saying, where is the boss? Can we just say, where is the boss? Okay. So a couple things here. When it comes after an S. Oh boy. There's a lot I can say on this topic. There's 2 things I'm going to say. The very first thing I have to say is that your example is unfortunately not a good example. This points to a deeper problem. I'm not saying it's you didn't do anything wrong. Nothing wrong. Okay. This actually helps me teach something else and maybe give you a correction here. So when we say is, there's no S sound in is. Okay. It's a Z sound. This is a very common English learner mistake. It's a Z sound. Now, we do have partial end of word devoicing, not full end of word devoicing, partial end of word devoicing. Z is voiced, Z, S is the same sound, but voiceless. We don't vibrate the vocal cords. Okay. No native speaker would ever say is. That's full devoicing. That's a straight S. That's not the word. That's not even a word in English. Is not a word. Okay. But it is a very common thing in, at least in American English, to use partial end of word devoicing, where you still have to start in the voiced form of that sound. So it's supposed to be a Z here, which is the voiced version of S. And you have to at least start the Z as a Z. You can then finish it as an S, drop the voice, but keep the sound going, right? Keep the breath going. So instead of saying is, right, that's a full Z. Is sounds very clearly enunciated. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's very common for us to do this. Is. Now you speed that up, especially for a word like is, which is usually not stressed, whatnot. If I say is, you might hear the I, the vibration from I, and then you hear that S at the end, and then you think it's is, but it's not, because if you say is, that's not a word. That doesn't sound right. Okay, so that's one point. So your example actually doesn't work because that's a Z sound. Although another question would be, remember, there's a voiced TH and a voiceless TH. So could we go from, say, S into voiceless TH and drop the TH? Can we go from Z into voiced TH and drop the TH? Right? Because maybe it'll work in both cases. Well, if I say is the, you have to be careful with the. Because remember, the only difference, strictly speaking, right, directly, if we compare them, the only difference in pronunciation between the and when they're reduced is the TH. If you remove the TH, you're just left with which might be interpreted as a, right, the article a. Now, this doesn't always cause a problem, but you do have to kind of be careful with it, because depending on what we're doing, like if you say is the, and you replace it with a Z, is a. Now it actually sounds like this. So if you say is the boss, or where is the boss, right? If you say where's the boss, where's the boss? This particular case, it sounds like you have an accent. It sounds like you have an accent. What if I say where's the boss? Where's the boss? Okay. This is stupid. I know it's stupid. We almost always contract. Okay. If I don't contract, it makes it sound kind of weird to me. If we do contract, and I say where's the, but I say where's the boss? Where's the boss? Where's the boss? And it's very clear that there's just one boss that we're talking about, right? It's the boss at your job. It actually sounds fine. It sounds fine to me with the contracted form. Okay, but remember, that's a Z replacing a voiced TH. Where's Z? Now, let's say we have pass and I don't know, thought. These two words probably wouldn't go together. It doesn't matter. Pass and thought. Okay, voiceless TH. Now, could I say pass thought? Pass thought. Pass thought. Maybe. I guess I need to come up with a better example, because those two words don't go together anyway. Less thinking. How about that? Less thinking. Those two can go together. If I say less thinking, we need less thinking. Less thinking, more action. Less thinking, more action. Less thinking, more action. If you're speaking fast enough, yes, it sounds okay. But if you're not speaking really fast, especially if you're speaking more slowly and you're enunciating, say less thinking, it sounds very bad. I'm trying to think about the other way around. What does happen commonly is the other way around. Okay. So if I say the path south, right? Path south. So we have a voiceless TH and an S. The path south. The path south. I'm just doing straight S, no TH. Sounds fine. That works too. Or is, what we talked about, is the, so I guess we don't have to talk about that. The other way around. Voice th is relatively uncommon at the end of a word. If I say breathe, and a word starts with a Z, I don't think those would ever go together. Breathe zebra, breathe zoo, breathe, whatever. We're just gonna ignore that one. So yes, these things can happen. Be careful with the, but these things can happen. Let's say something else about that. I don't know what it was. Oh, yeah. Keep in mind, especially when we're talking about American English pronunciation, most of the time there's more than one answer. Okay. And that's because American English pronunciation is not one thing. Okay. I really hate it when a teacher says, like, oh, don't pronounce, what's a good example here? Two. Don't pronounce two as two. Okay. Now, if in the lesson they give you the little nuance clarification that you need for the whole picture, then it's okay. But if they just tell you, don't say two as two, say ta. Okay, I see where they're coming from. Two is almost always reduced to ta. But it's not always reduced. Usually it doesn't really matter if you reduce it or not. It's just very common to reduce it. It's what we do more often than not. But if you listen to native speakers, there are times where we don't reduce it, not for a special reason necessarily, just because it doesn't end up getting reduced. So I hate when other teachers say stuff like that, because it misleads you. It doesn't give you the whole picture. The reality is that American English pronunciation is a range. Every single sound, when we're talking about the articulation of a particular sound, every sound has a range for how sort of perfect and clear it is versus how sort of lazy and fast it is. So that's at the individual sound level. Applies to vowels and consonants, all of them, every single sound. So a couple examples: if I say an S nice and clearly, S, okay. If I say an S a little more lazily, doesn't sound like something else. It's still an S. It's definitely not an SH. It's just, it's not as clear. I'm not pushed fully into that position. I'm a little bit more into the center of the mouth posture. I'm just not fully forming the sound, but I'm forming it enough to where it still seems like an S, right? So the first S would probably be used definitely in clear enunciated speech. That's the first level. We don't spend a lot of time speaking here. I really hate when teachers say, oh, you should enunciate, like enunciate. And it's like, maybe if you just want to sound clear and you don't want to sound anything like a native or a natural speaker, but enunciating all the time can also make it harder to understand you. It's just, I hate that advice. Do not enunciate all the time, because it causes problems and you won't sound natural. Then there's the normal range. There's sort of a little bit slower, a little bit faster, but there's a normal range where most speakers spend most of our time speaking. Then there's the super fast range. But the normal range is where a lot of the linking rules start happening. There's some linking rules that can happen even in this enunciated range, but a lot of the linking rules start happening as you move from this sort of slow, clear, enunciated speech more and more and more into, you know, faster, lazier, all the way up to super fast and lazy. That's the range. Okay, from super clear, enunciated, and slower to less enunciated and faster, right? Lazier and faster. And there's a whole spectrum here. And in the flow of real speech, depending on what we're saying, depending on, like, oh, if we have to think this, that, or whatever, depending on you know, how we're flowing. It could also mean, like, if I'm on a stage, I might have sort of a different type of flow and might spend a little bit more time on this lower end. But anyway, the in the flow of real speech every day will sometimes come down here. Like, say I tell you the same thing 3 times, you weren't listening. You're like, what? Say, okay, listen. Can we go to the store? See, nice, everything. To the store. Oh, I still reduced the, you can still reduce to, it doesn't really matter, but it's more likely that it's going to be not reduced. I'm saying everything. I'm even, like, removing the rhythm. I'm saying everything equally because it's like, this is the fourth time I'm telling you, are you listening now? Pay attention, nice and clear every word. Okay. There are times for us to go down in there and speak in that. That's an extreme example, but we spend most of our time here. Things are relatively fast, lots of linking, lots of drop sounds, blah, blah, blah. A lot of the things that teachers teach you about will apply in this range, like reducing tu to ta. Definitely going to happen much more often than not in this range. Then there's the super fast speed, which is where a lot of the basic rules that you learn, not all of them, but quite a few of them actually break down. And we get all kinds of weird things going on. I still have to explore that more, but think of it sort of like the Wild West in American history. It's an almost lawless land where what you might expect to happen doesn't happen, and sounds that shouldn't drop end up dropping, and special linking that shouldn't happen might actually happen because of the speed, the extreme speed that we're speaking at. So I mentioned that because when we're talking about things like this, like say the path south, right? Notice I said the path south, path south. I said the TH really clearly. I said the S really clearly. Okay. In this case, because the TH can kind of disappear, one thing we might choose to do is push out that TH nice and clearly so that it's very clear what we're saying. Now, it's very common to just drop the TH anyway and go to the S, or we might choose to keep it. There's not a right answer there. But is it possible to drop the TH in order to speak a little faster, a little more lazily? Yes, you can do that. It's not a problem. And then on top of that, we know that I've talked about before how the TH, right, there's that dental T replacement of the voiceless TH. So you can also say the path south. So I'm actually stopping here and then doing the S. Path south, path south. That's another way to do it in this particular case because of how the THs work. So there's like 3 or 4 different answers of how you can pronounce this. And there's no like one right answer. That's the thing. Okay. So I see Wendell has a question. So Timur, how to speak with a New York accent? I do not know. I don't speak with a New York accent. Anytime I try to imitate a New York accent, it comes out horribly. I am not the person to ask about a New York accent because I speak a neutral, general American accent based on Western American English. Okay, Wendell, I think the first syllable of the word English has, here's the IPA again, stupid IPA, has E as in the word eat, and then a full nasal N, air through the nose. No. So I talked about last time how any vowel before N will be partially nasalized. Or at least it can be. And we hear that most clearly with A before N, which is why it makes it sound a little bit, part of the reason why it makes it sound a little bit different. To completely nasalize it, you would have to say it like this. English, English, E. You can go to the E, fully E. English, English. That's how it would sound. That sounds like, that's like if I were to say everything like this and I have a very nasally voice, then if I say English, it would fit perfectly with that. But most people don't speak that nasally, so no, that's way too much. You can partially nasalize the E, but also keep in mind here, it's not English. There's no N here at the back end, right? Now that can still have that sort of partial nasalizing effect. That's fine, but it's and English. In this case, there's actually a G there. So not quite right on that, but you can get partial nasalization, yes. How to speak? Oh, I already did that one. How can I do an American accent without sounding fake? Well, welcome, Nandin. No idea how I'm supposed to pronounce that, so sorry. But it's a good question. Good question. I will direct you to two sources, two resources. One is my full American English pronunciation course, which is quite long. I'm actually going to rearrange a couple things and remove some of the extra practice lessons from that, so it's not quite so cumbersome. I'm going to have a separate playlist for the extra practice lessons. But that's one thing. Okay, in that I cover pretty much everything you need to know, especially when we're talking about the sound level, how to form the sounds and all that stuff. I still need to make some videos to complete it, but it's mostly done. More importantly, much more powerfully, is mouth posture. Mouth posture. I won't go into all the details here. I am in the process of creating the mouth posture course live with people that I'm working with. Well, not live, but in real life. I do have the first the introductory lesson, and then the phase 1 and phase 0 lessons. I'll give you the playlist here. Studio playlists, and where is it? Where did it go? Why are you not on the first page? Yeah. That's not it. Oh my god, where is it? Oh, there it is. Studio 2. Okay. So this here, that's the playlist for the mouth posture. It's not complete. I'm still building it. The people that I've been working with, we've seen some really good results. Phase 0, even if you don't do the whole mouth posture course, phase 0, that by itself can potentially directly answer your question. How do you do an American accent? Do phase 0. Phase 0 is it applies to every language. It's you do like moving your throat in different directions, dividing your tongue into 3 parts, and then moving, say, like the back, like up without the throat or the rest of the tongue moving, things like that. A lot of people have trouble doing that, but it's possible. And if you're going to try to get certain sounds, if you're going to try to hold your mouth a certain way, like an American tends to hold it, then you need to be able to control your tongue and your vocal tract in general, but especially your tongue. The lips are also a factor. The jaw, how open your jaw is an important detail. I talk about that in phase 1. But a good example, right? A lot of people have trouble with, say, the sound or the th sound. Okay. It's not that you can't do it. It's just that, right? Like if let's say if this hand, like if I never moved this hand ever, right? Like I didn't know how to use it. Okay. And then I start trying to it kind of moves, it kind of does some stuff, right? But I'm not very conscious of it. It just kind of works. Okay. And then I say, okay, well, I want to be able to do this specific thing with my hand. I want to be able to, say like move this finger down like this without anything else, which this is kind of tied together, but you get the point. With, mostly this. All right. Can I get that control? And that's not the perfect example, but in order to make, say, the sound, you need to get your tongue to do a certain thing, certain shape, certain tension, certain placement of the sound on the tongue is in the middle of the tongue. And if you don't have the ability to control your tongue, to manipulate your tongue enough, which most people don't, I mean, you can develop the ability, but most people don't have that ability naturally. Then you're not going to get the R. That's why the R is difficult. It's not that is a difficult sound. Is just like every other sound. It's just a sound. It's just a sound, right? All these sounds are just sounds. For me, right, I'm a native speaker. Of course, I can say all day. It's super, super easy for me. That's not, I mean, this is partially because I'm a native speaker, but my tongue learned how to do that, right? Now, if you go through phase 0, through all the different exercises to the point of passing, the exercises, not just doing them mindlessly, you're going to develop a greater awareness of how your tongue feels. You're going to develop a greater ability to manipulate your tongue in subtle ways. Because if you can do, say, up, down, forward, back with just the back of the tongue, not pulling the middle around, not pulling the throat around, and then you can do the same thing with the middle, you now have a powerful tool, because now you can manipulate the middle and maybe the back independently to adjust more into that sound. You see, instead of just like, oh, I hear this sound and I try to make my tongue do that and I can't do that. Well, yeah, because you don't have the awareness and control of how to manipulate your tongue. Same thing with the TH. I don't have to put it between the teeth. I can do that easily all day. Right? And you might be sitting there like, how does he do that? That's magical. No, you just have to be able to manipulate the front of your tongue to sort of extend it out. There's a little bit of a shape to it. You have to get that shape just right. And you just place it either between the teeth or right behind the teeth, anywhere behind the teeth here. You get close enough. That's all it is, right? It's that ability to manipulate your tongue. So phase 0 will teach you that. It doesn't teach you any specific sounds. It doesn't teach you anything specific to American English. It helps you get control over your vocal tract, so that you can then effectively start working on the sounds, start working later on building syllables, which I haven't made the content for that yet. I'm still working on that with people. Obviously, stress is going to be part of that. Mouth posture is not related to stress necessarily, but I have some lessons on stress. I'm making the intonation series right now, so there's different levels to it. But if you want to get down to the very, the core of it with the sounds, mouth posture, mouth posture, mouth posture, mouth posture. So I would recommend you check that out. And it's not going to be perfect. I like to give the example of a British accent because I do not have I think I have a decent British accent, but I definitely don't have a perfect British accent. The British mouth posture, the jaws were a little bit more closed. The tongue seems to be maybe pushed forward a little bit. The British English is kind of spoken more from like up around here, where American English is spoken more from down around here in center and lower. Now, regardless of what I do, because I haven't tried to master a British accent, I could, but I don't care. If I were to talk to a British speaker, even if I shift my mouth posture, they're probably going to notice. But I do think that there is a noticeable difference depending if I'm trying to speak with a British accent with American mouth posture versus first me trying to approximate a more British posture. So if I say, so right now I'm going to be using American mouth posture. My mouth is much more open. See, open sounds kind of weird, right? Okay. And I'm speaking more from this center area here. Okay. Even my water, it's a bit too open. Okay. Horrible British accent, but let's see if I can do this. It's gonna be so weird. Hopefully I can pull this off. I did it before. Now instead, if I try to keep my jaw a little bit more closed, see that O now sounds a bit better instead of O, O, O. I try to speak a bit more from the front of my mouth. I don't know what impression that might give to somebody, but me personally, not personally, me personally, I think it gives me a bit more of a British sound. I could be wrong, but I think it gives me a bit more of a British sound just by trying to shift my posture into more of a British mouth posture. Of course, based off of RP, received pronunciation. So anyway, even though I was trying to imitate the sounds, again, I haven't mastered a British accent, but keeping that American mouth posture, even just trying to imitate the British sounds. Like I'm not saying ah, I'm not saying cat, right? I say cat, which that's probably horrible also. Did you see the cat? Something like that. I don't know. Exactly. I'm probably off there. But it doesn't sound like ah, right? British people don't say, did you see the cat? The cat. Like maybe if they're exaggerating or something, it might come out that way. But as a matter of fact, you sound cool with British accent. Thank you. I just don't want to do it because it's so fake. I mean, I guess if it doesn't sound that bad, it sounds kind of cool. I guess maybe it can pass. But I know there's going to be a British person that just comes out is like, "You sir are not from the United Kingdom." You're like, "Yeah, I know. Sorry." But anyway, yeah, the mouth posture has an effect. That's the point I'm trying to make. Mouth posture has an effect because I'm just not in the right place to do the sounds properly, right? Even if the IPA symbol is the same, even if the sounds are placed very similarly, it's not just a matter of placing the sounds. It's the way that the vocal tract is held, particularly the tongue. So anyway, Alan, welcome. Shaking things again. In bulb word. So in the word bulb. Okay. I pronounce dark L plus B at the end. Yeah. So okay, let me break this down. Okay. There's two ways that I could transcribe this. And there's one that I prefer. Okay. We could transcribe it like this. And transcribe it like this. Welcome, David. Let me know if you have any questions. So the first option, there are people who will say it that way. And if you say it that way, there's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly neutral, perfectly natural. That's the way that it's usually taught. You go to the dictionary, I'm pretty sure. Sometimes the dictionary gives really weird things. But let me type this in. Okay, it's using the upside down V instead of the schwa symbol, but we know it's basically the same sound in American English. So, okay. Either way, whether it's the upside down V or the actual upside down E schwa symbol, it would be right. If we put it sort of in English letters, it would be UH. Okay. That's perfectly fine. But the way that I generally speak, you'll sometimes hear me use it that way. Just like I have the cot merger, but sometimes I'll unmerge and I don't notice it. But the way that I speak and the way that you can speak and still sound perfectly natural, perfectly normal, perfectly neutral, no problem, this is one reason why I say there's the half L vowel sound, commonly called the dark L, because it does function mostly like a vowel. It's much more like a vowel than a consonant in the way that it's formed, in the way that it's used. We can even flap D's around it. Sometimes it's a little difficult, but possible. So instead of trying to say bulb, right, and trying to sort of do like an L-colored which you could do again, perfectly fine. Instead, you can make your life easier. The way that I teach it and the way that I generally speak, that this combination does not exist. You don't have to care about it. Okay, it's just like this. This also does not exist. You can just use the as a vowel sound. Okay. I made a short on that recently. Same thing with the L here. You never have to say ul. Okay. You can simply say ul. Just that dark L itself, the half L vowel. So instead of saying bulb, bulb, you can say bulb, bull. See, I'm already in that when I release the B. Bull. My tongue is there before I even open that up. And then you just end it with a B again. Bulb. Perfectly normal. No problem. Sounds great. So yes, you're correct. See, now we get all the questions. We're technically running towards the end of our time, but we can go a little bit longer. When the S in word is located, okay, so when the S in a word is located between two vowels, it's pronounced as a Z. I doubt that. That might be some rule that people are talking about. Let me test that. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Didn't take me long to think of an example. Passing. Now, maybe because I'm adding the ing here. So pass, it's passing. Maybe that's why it doesn't change it to a Z, right? But just because I had the ing, I wouldn't say passing. That's not a word. Okay. Let me see if I can think of a word that has an S as a core natural part of the word between two vowels. Passage. Don't say passage. Passage. So I don't know, because I think I saw somebody talking about a rule like that somewhere before or whatever. If you ever see anybody talking about that, maybe that's something that happens in some cases. I don't know. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but it would definitely not be a 100% rule. If anything, it would be an exception rule. I don't think it's any kind of rule at all. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just not thinking of something, but I don't think S being between two vowels has anything to do with anything. No. So if you heard that from somebody, they're wrong and you should ignore them. Timur, or at least ignore them on that point. How many ways are there to make dark L? One. There's one way to make dark L. Wow. Okay, remember we were talking about the range of sounds? Let's go back to that. So there's the L sound, right? The L sound. Now, there's what's commonly called the light L, and there's the dark L. And these terms make absolutely no sense to me. I'm sure there's a reason why they use light in one case and dark in another case, but I'm always trying to think of this from the average person's perspective. If somebody who doesn't know these terms, they never came across this and they see light L and dark L, what's the difference? Because if I think of the sound L compared to ul, I can see why they might say ul is light and ul is dark, but at the same time, I can also think of a way to perceive it the opposite. So it doesn't really mean anything to me, and I know that other people will be confused by it as well. So I don't use those terms. I use the full L and the half L. Okay? And there's a reason why I use full and half, which I'm going to describe now, which will answer your question. But in addition to that, I also usually add to the full part, the full L consonant, not fuel. Full L consonant. Consonant, I can spell. And the half L vowel. Capitalize the V, but whatever, who cares? And I had a debate about this. Well, I don't know if it was a debate, but I had an exchange about this on a comment the other day. Talking about how like L is never a vowel, this and that, blah 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 blah. And I don't care. How does this work? What's the range of the L sound? Okay, some sounds, most sounds, when we're talking about vowels or consonants, like we were talking about the S, for example, it's still an S. Like there's no significant difference. It's just one's lazier and less clear. But there's a whole little range in there. Like I could go all the way from that full enunciated place to, kind of a little bit out, a little bit out, a little bit out. And, eventually if I go too far, it's not going to be an S anymore. But it's not just like there's this point and this point for like clear and lazy. No, there's a little bit of a range in there. And as long as you're in there, you're going to sound fine. For some sounds like the TH or for the L, the range isn't just about not fully getting into that position. We actually can get different things. In the case of the TH, it would be either through the teeth or right behind the teeth is just like a normal enunciated TH. You can be a little bit farther back, like barely creates a TH sound. That's like a really, really quick, lazy TH. Usually we use that before just to make it easier to say. But you can also use the dental T and D to replace the THs. And that's not informal. It's a perfectly normal thing. It's just a variation. So that's part of the range of the TH sound. In the case of the L, if I lift my tongue up, now there is an exact shape, there's an exact way that I touch, it's not straight up like this, We don't care. I have lessons on that. You can go watch that. But if I bring my tongue up, I touch the top, okay? You can touch the teeth with the L. It doesn't matter if you touch the teeth or not. Okay, I know. I think there are some teachers who say like you're supposed to touch the teeth, you're not supposed to touch the teeth. Doesn't matter at all. It has no effect. But you bring the front of your tongue up. Okay, you're touching with the front of your tongue. Oh, la 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 la. Okay, the air is going around the tongue and the mouth because there's space here. Okay, if we close it, it would become more of like a N sound. And there you go. Okay. That's an L. That's just basically what an L is. Okay, what you might think of as the L sound. Okay, so that's simple enough. Then there's another thing we can do. So with the back of the tongue, now actually it is kind of on the back of the tongue, but really in order to get it, you have to actually sort of push down a little bit and back with the middle of the tongue to help get the right shape and pressure. I'm going to be talking about that in the mouth posture course, but it basically sits on the back of the tongue, and it's oh. Now there's the velum back here, which is that little flap that around the nasal passage to go up into your nose, and when you do it kind of pushes this back a little bit. You don't want to close it or anything, but it pushes it back a little bit. And I haven't mentioned this before in my lessons because it doesn't matter, but it does sort of push up against or get really close to that velum. And because of that, linguists still define it as a consonant. Because, right, like the vowels, even for like E and U, right, they're a lot more closed, there's a lot less space, but they're not really close enough to, create any friction, like with sh or ch or something like that. And so they're vowels as opposed to consonants. Consonants will, either close like in the stop consonants, or they'll create some sort of friction or whatever it is. And I don't care. I don't care what's technically accurate according to academics. What I'm teaching you is not wrong. The way that I'm labeling it is not the way that it's normally labeled. But that's not the point. The point is to be able to understand what to do and how to do it, and when to do it. And as I said, in many ways, in many cases, many places, the dark L, the half L vowel sound, functions like a vowel. Now, I didn't know this until I had this exchange with that other person, but apparently there's a difference between like the dark L and the syllabic L, which doesn't make any sense to me, because when I talk about the dark L or the half L vowel, anytime a syllable ends with L, I don't care if it's syllabic or not, it's a half L vowel, period. Like, that's just how it works. And if that's not the way that, say, because remember, there's more than one neutral accent in American English. Usually it's based off of one of those neutral accents, and you're taught everything from the perspective of that neutral accent, which is also kind of dated. Also, it's a semi-fake accent that nobody actually speaks natively, even Americans. My accent, a Western American accent, is also neutral. It's one of the neutral accents under General American. General American is not one specific region. It's the way that most Americans speak. The big exception, of course, is the South region, which has its own little range of Southern accents. But most Americans from most parts of the country are under this umbrella. There's even some people from the South. Like I met a guy the other day from Georgia, and until he said he was from Georgia, I would never have guessed because he sounded completely neutral. So General American refers to an umbrella. It's an umbrella term that refers to the general neutral sound that most Americans have. So there's no one like exact neutral accent. Because of that, the way that I describe it, I don't think it's wrong necessarily, because it's based on the way I speak. But looking at the dark L as a vowel sound, I think is just more useful conceptually. And there's just a whole bunch of reasons why I do that. I don't want to go into all this stuff there, but it's based off how I speak as a neutral sounding Western American, General American speaker. Okay, neutral sounding. So you can do it this way and you'll still sound fine. Now, to your question specifically, got lost on a tangent there. If your tongue is not touching, it's a dark L. Okay. If your tongue is touching, it's a light L. Okay, the consonant. Now, the front of your tongue, as far as the dark L is concerned, it does not matter what the front of your tongue does. It could be really close here, like almost touching, still a dark L. Okay, oh, 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 oh. Now, let's say I lower the front of my tongue all the way down. Oh, 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 oh. Okay. Now, if you listen in comparison, direct comparison, there's a little bit of a change in sound, but it's not significant for us to care. We don't make any difference there. But as soon as I touch, oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh. Okay. Now there's one difference there. They might say that still sounds kind of dark, and that's because I was holding the position. There's one difference. It's not just touching here. Because obviously if I just let this go, I'm going to say, that's our default sound, our mouth posture. So because we're not touching here, what happens in English is this and this this and this stuck in the half L now. They are actually two completely separate sounds. Within the context of English, we interpret both of them, and native speakers' ears will interpret both of them as an L sound. Okay, but they're actually two completely different sounds. It's not just like, oh, this is the full one, and then if I drop it, it's now magically going to be, the instead. No, as I said, there's this sort of down and back, placing it on the back. There's this pressure and shape there. And that's what creates that sound. Then the front of my tongue, it doesn't matter what it's doing. As soon as I come up here, if I'm holding that shape, it's still going to sound dark. Okay. And that makes sense to me because the person I was having that exchange with the other day, he said that when he does the dark L, he's still making contact up here. And at first I was really confused by that because I was like, that I never do that. That doesn't make any sense. But it does make sense if you're still holding that shape and that tension there, even if you touch, it's going to sound dark. So you have to get rid of that tension and shape, bring the tongue up like this, bring the sides in. There's a little bit of its own little tension and shape going on there, but that's going to make it sound like the light L or the full L consonant. So your question of, and this is a very long way to describe this. I want to give you all the details so we know what's going on here. How many ways are there to make the dark L? There's one, which is what I described. But the reason why I said technically is because when it comes to the front of the tongue, it doesn't matter what the front of your tongue is doing. Okay, as long as it's not, well, I guess you could even still be touching, but for simplicity, we're going to ignore that. I would just say generally don't touch. So, yeah, there's basically the one way, but the front of your tongue could be in different positions. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Ahmed, are you sure that your black cat has nothing to do with your low subscriber, even though you have high quality content? Ha! Ha! Pretty sure this is a troll comment, but that's okay. I'll humor it. Maybe it's just a joke. I'm very sure. Actually, I have two black cats, so maybe that's even worse, right? And then I have, one of my books, the point of view stories for intermediate learners. One of the stories in there is called The Black Cat. So, that's clearly I'm just a witch. And because I'm a witch, that is what allows me to make you think that I have such high quality content, but because, the forces of the universe conspire against me and whatnot, the results I get on YouTube are actually quite low because of all the bad luck I get from the black cats. I'll go with it. I just need a witch hat. Where's my witch hat? I don't have a witch hat. Oh well. Anyway, I think there are two main reasons why I have low subscribers, despite the fact that I have high quality, which I think a lot of it could be better, honestly, especially in my earlier videos. I try to make good content, but I'm very hard on myself. I always know there's room to improve. The first reason I think is because, I've had the channel for a couple years, three, maybe 4 years now. It's been a while. But it's because, there's some channels that blow up really quick, so it's not a matter of time. But you look at the some of the English teaching channels that have a million or more subscribers, it's pretty common. Like I think Rachel's English started at the beginning of YouTube, like 2007, somewhere around there. And she has 4 million subscribers. So that in itself, time is not the only factor, but obviously if you're around long enough, especially if you're a first mover, there's the first mover advantage. And she was one of the first English teaching channels. So, the time does help. So I think that's part of it, because there's lots of English teaching content out there. So there's still lots of people who just haven't found my channel. Now, it's also partially my fault, because if I made maybe more engaging content that people watched longer and this and that, whatever, then it would be pushed out by the algorithm more, and then more people would find it faster. So I'm definitely not blaming the algorithm here. I could probably do better, and I'm trying to do better, but I really hate editing and it takes a lot of time. So yeah, I think that's the other reason. I think some of the ways that I present stuff isn't the most catchy, because I've had several people tell me that, where it's like when you first start watching, you're kind of like and then when you actually get into it, you're like, wow, this is amazing. And so I think one of my weaknesses is like the beginning part and getting you to the wow part, because the wow is in there, but if you leave before the wow, there's not much point. So I need to work on that. Can the Fall Rise intonation sound sarcastic? That's a good question. I haven't finished pinning down all the details of emotional intonation. I have the basic outline, but I'm going to go through specifics as I make the lesson, which is coming soon. Can the Fall Rise intonation sound sarcastic? Fall Rise. I'll look at my notes. See if it's in my notes. See, when you ask a question like that, especially for a person like me that's horrible with like on-the-spot examples, I'm trying to think of a context that would specifically use that particular pattern with that particular effect, and there's just like, how do I grab that out of my brain? Okay, let's see here. So we have what was it? Sarcasm. Sarcasm, annoyance. Okay. I do have a note here. It says sarcasm / annoyance. Quick punching up and down on the focus words. But that's rise fall. That's just a note that I had. It's not confirmed necessarily. And I have several notes on sarcasm in here. One way to show sarcasm is to be flatter. So it's not necessarily just the like the rising and falling combination will like result in sarcasm. There's multiple ways to show sarcasm. Yeah, I don't have anything here saying specifically about fall rise for sarcasm. If you can give me an example, maybe with a context, I can think about it. But I'm gonna say probably no. I need more specifics. Give me something to work with. Does the TH in informal speech sound like a Spanish T? Okay, so number one, the pronunciation of the TH has absolutely zero to do with formality. There's no impact of formality on the TH pronunciation. Zero. Okay. Now, I think you're thinking of replacing the TH with the dental T or D sound. That is not in any way at all like completely separate. It is not an informal way to pronounce the TH sound. If you watch the news, If you watch people give presentations, okay, now when they're giving presentations, they tend to enunciate a little bit more. Maybe you won't see it as much there, but I've heard it. I've heard it in presentations. I've heard it in like TED Talks. I've heard it on the news, right? Even though people are using grammar that, you know, they use the passive voice a lot more. That's not necessarily how we speak in real life. They're still using this dental T or D variation of the TH sound. Nothing to do with formality at all. Nothing to do with formality at all. Now, if you replace a TH with a regular T or D, so instead of saying that, replacing it with a dental D, saying that sounds perfectly fine, no informality. But if you do a regular D and you say dat, now you sound very, very informal and probably uneducated. That's just the sound of it. Not saying you are uneducated, it's just how it sounds. So that's where it would get informal, but just replacing it with this one, there's no effect on that. Okay. Now, does it sound like the Spanish T? So remember that if it's a voiceless TH, it would be replaced with a dental T. If it's a voiceless, if it's a voiceless TH, no voice, it would be replaced with a dental T because T is voiceless. If it's a voiced TH, then it would be replaced with a dental D. So same placement, same everything. We're just adding that voice still. So they correspond to each other. You can't just replace all THs with a dental T. It's not going to work. Does it sound like the Spanish T? Yes. In fact, it's exactly the same thing as the Spanish T. It is the Spanish T. Now, Spanish has a different mouth posture. I don't think that has too much of a big impact on this particular detail because we're putting it flat on the teeth. In fact, for this dental T or D version of the TH sound, it doesn't actually have to be on the teeth. That's why I usually put dental in quotations, because if you're in the normal T or D placement, but you're flatter, you're not doing an actual normal T or D, which isn't straight up, but there's a little flatness to it. If you make it really, really flat and you say like duh, duh, tuh, tuh, where it loses that to that crispness, that would also be considered that sort of dental T or D, even though we're not actually touching the teeth. And that can replace a TH. So yeah, but it's other, and that has to do partially with our mouth posture, where we can go up here and just make it flatter. Spanish mouth posture is more closed. I'm pretty sure the tongue is pushed slightly more forward, so your tongue is already in a position to kind of just do that. Where we only do that for the TH because the TH already needs to come forward up here around the teeth, and so we just go a little bit farther and make it flat. But it's essentially the same, yes. Bo Noel. Sorry if I said that wrong. Great videos. I use them once in a while in my classes. I can. Oh wow, wow, awesome! Dang, wow, that's. I don't. Okay, I don't know what to say about that. I'm probably gonna start blushing now. Well, thank you for letting me know. Huh. Oh, I don't know what to say about that. Awesome. Awesome. Especially because one of my, I don't know if I'll ever actually achieve this. One of my long-term goals is to kind of change the way that languages are taught, specifically in terms of pronunciation, because pronunciation is usually just glossed over. And it's like, okay, maybe we'll tell you about this or that. Maybe we'll give you a little bit of comparison between sounds, but it's not about skill development. It's just knowledge of pronunciation. And I don't know the current state of the education. I'm sure, you know, things are always generally improving. But I think there's still a lot more improvements that can happen. So if people are using my content in the classroom, that makes me extra happy. But yeah, awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Abdullah, responding to Wendell, that's the dental team. Yes, exactly. After I explained all that, I should have just skipped ahead. Oh yeah, speaking of the dental TD, is it okay to use dental T in word in isolation? Ooh, in a word in isolation, or in words in isolation? So instead of saying like think, if I say think, yes, no problem. Now, in real life speech, right, words don't tend to happen in isolation, right? We tend to isolate words when we're talking about the words, right? But what was I going to say there? If you are, maybe again, you're going to tend to that like really clear enunciated thing, and you're kind of like separating everything out to make it super super clear because the person isn't listening, or they're not understanding you. And you feel like, do you think that's okay? No problem. No problem. Now, in that case, because you're in that more enunciated region, it's probably going to be more likely that you would use the full pronunciation. But this is another reason why I say it's a variation on producing the th sound. It's not a lazy form, right? Because it still exists there. And we saw earlier, I was talking about how like even in that more clear form, I mean, you could still reduce the to the, maybe to ta, just because they're so common. So we can still maybe get some reductions, but it's much more likely that we're going to use the full pronunciation of most or everything. But replacing it with the dental version for the th is absolutely no problem when you're doing that. No problem at all. Alan, be careful. I told you fall res. Wait, what? Yeah, fall res. Yeah, I know. And then I said, well, there's rise fall, and you're asking about fall rise, and so that wasn't what I was saying. But anyway, yeah. So you have to wait. I'll try to investigate specifically fall rise for sarcasm and see if I find anything. Like there's just so much, guys. Like my job when we're talking about, like, when I'm trying to do this whole like looking under the surface, and like as a native speaker, right, I'm like, okay, what are like some related phrases or some related things? How does this feel? How would I explain that? And like just trying to like go into the surface and find the connections and stuff, and then figure out how I would explain that. Depending on what we're talking about, like with intonation, right? There's rise, there's fall rise, there's rise fall. And then there's the attentional intonation, which obviously if we emphasize, it can make the arc bigger. Maybe it sounds like a rise fall, but it's not actually rising and falling in the same way that a structural intonation would. And then we have emotion on top of that, which can color the whole thing. And it just there's so many different various inflections that can show different emotions and all this stuff, and it just gets crazy. And so it's really hard to keep track of it all consciously. That's why I have to kind of like go step by step, pull it out of my brain, think about it, look up things online, so that's like, oh yeah, I don't want to forget that. Oh yeah, that reminds me about that. So that I try to, cover as much as possible. But then when you ask me about a specific thing, I mean, it might be there, but sometimes it's just like either it's lost in my brain or it's something that I haven't pinpointed down yet. And that can happen. So it comes with the territory of the way that I'm approaching this, unfortunately. So Shauk. And I've seen you here before. I don't remember how to say your name. Sorry. Hi. Welcome. If you're still here, it took a little while. We're just about almost out of time. Looks like we're slowing down. If anybody has any last minute questions, now's the time to ask. Otherwise, we're going to be wrapping up here. Channels with stupid content have a large audience. Don't worry, you are great. Yeah, I get that relatively frequently. That's the whole thing. That's like, sort of like a paradox to me. Again, I think it has to be with me, because a lot of people blame the algorithm. I don't think it's the algorithm. Like the algorithm seems very meritocratic. If that's even the way to say that word, meritocratic. Where if you produce it, it wants to keep people on the platform. So if what you're creating keeps people watching, it's going to push that out to more people, right? Now, obviously, there's the specific topic I'm talking about, which is teaching English. That's not going to apply to English speakers that are native speakers. They're not going to care. So I'm still probably going to show it to some of them if they watch language learning content or whatever. But there's still lots of English learners on YouTube, so I have a decent sized audience. Obviously, Rachel's English has 4 million subscribers, so that's at least 4 million potential subscribers I could have. So I know that, again, I think with the openings and making it a little more entertaining or something, I can make it even better, keep people watching longer. But that's the thing that doesn't make sense to me. Kind of doesn't make sense to me is I get comments like this where like, oh, you know, all these other channels, they, you know, they just keep reproducing the same stupid content, blah, blah, blah. Your stuff is great. Or like, how do you not have 1 million subscribers yet? You know, you're such a small channel, but you should have so many more subscribers. And I get comments like that. I'm like, why don't I have more subscribers? If my content is so great, why has it taken me like 4 years to, you know, barely break 5,000? So I know it's largely on my end. Maybe the content I'm making is great, but it could be better. It could be better. I just need to find ways to make it better. And then, as I said, I hate the editing, so that's already a barrier where it's like I want to edit as little as possible, but you know, I can't do too little because then it's just not engaging at all. Anyway, so again, once I get an editor, once the channel grows to the point that I can pay a video editor, which would be great, so great, save so much time for me. They're going to be able to do a much better job than I can in a lot shorter time, and the content will probably get much, much, much better. Because I think the information I'm sharing and the perspective I give is where you guys find the value. But even the people that really like my content, I think a lot of you would probably say could be more engaging. I have a suspicion about that. But I like that you guys appreciate what I'm putting out. So, okay. I don't see any more questions. We're just about out of time here anyway. Oh, I have so much to do. My plan, I just released that P Extra practice today. I was supposed to do it tomorrow. Didn't quite get it because I got tripped up in something. But so I posted that this morning. My plan was to post the next, the contrast and emphasis attentional intonation lesson today. I also want to do 2 shorts today. Obviously, I've been in this live stream for the past like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I still have other things to do today. I'm going to try my best to at least get the attentional intonation lesson most of the way done, if not completely finished. But I still have 5 to 6 hours at my second job I have to do. That's going to take a big chunk of my time. If nothing else, I'll try to push out those 2 shorts that I want to make. But yeah, so maybe tomorrow the next main lesson will be done, and we'll go from there. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys very much for hanging out, asking questions, and I will see you next week.